Tom lived in a quiet town where the streets curved around a wide blue lake. The lake was the center of the neighborhood. Children played near its edges, families had picnics by the water, and small groups sometimes gathered for evening walks along the shore. Tom's house was one of the oldest near the lake. It had a tall oak tree in front and a small wooden dock that stretched into the calm water. His boat, a simple wooden one with faded paint, rested there almost every day. It was not fancy or large, but it was special to Tom because it had belonged to his father. Fishing had always been his favorite hobby. On many evenings, Tom sat at the back of the boat with a fishing rod in hand, enjoying the silence. Sometimes, his neighbor Sam would join him, and the two would talk about work, family, and life. For Tom, the boat was more than just wood and paint. It was a memory of his father and a reminder of peaceful times. One morning, Tom stepped out to collect his mail and noticed something unusual. A paper was pinned to his front door. He pulled it off and began to read. The bold letters at the top caught his eye. Notice of violation. The letter was from the Neighborhood Homeowners Association, often called the HOA. It said that his boat violated the community rules. According to them, no resident was allowed to keep a boat tied at the dock where people could see it. The letter demanded that Tom remove his boat within 10 days. If not, he would face daily fines. Tom frowned and shook his head. His boat had been there for years, and no one had ever complained. The dock was part of his property, and he always kept the boat neat and safe. Why should it matter to anyone? Still holding the letter, he walked to the dock and looked at the boat. The water rippled gently under it. To Tom, the boat looked harmless. It was tied securely, not blocking the lake, and it certainly was not disturbing anyone. That evening, Tom decided to attend the monthly HOA meeting. He wanted to hear directly from the board. The meeting was held at the community hall, a small building near the entrance of the neighborhood. Chairs were arranged in rows, and about 20 residents had gathered. At the front sat the board members. Linda, the HOA president, called the meeting to order. She was known for her strict personality and her sharp way of speaking. She wasted no time. Next on the agenda, she announced, is the violation at Tom's property. His boat is stored in plain sight, which is against our rules. Tom stood and spoke calmly. The boat is on my dock, which is part of my property. It is safe and not bothering anyone. Linda gave him a cold look. The rules are clear. No boats tied where they can be seen. If we allow yours, others will follow. This is not a marina. You must move it. Murmurs spread across the room. Some neighbors nodded in agreement with Linda, but others looked uneasy. One man whispered that he enjoyed seeing the boat on the lake, as it reminded him of the town's history. Tom folded the letter and placed it in his pocket. He did not argue further. Instead, he said, "I'll look into it," and quietly sat down. After the meeting ended, a few neighbors came to him. Sam, his friend, patted him on the shoulder. "Don't let it bother you too much," he said. "But honestly, they're being unfair. That boat has been part of the lake for as long as I can remember." Tom smiled faintly. "Thanks, Sam. I have an idea, but I'll need to check something first." Later that night, Tom sat at his desk at home. He opened a wooden drawer and pulled out an old folder that had belonged to his father. Inside were yellowed papers, maps, and legal documents. Tom carefully flipped through them until he found what he was looking for. It was a deed, signed many decades ago, that described the transfer of ownership of land and water rights. Tom's eyes lit up as he read the details. His father had once explained this to him, but until now, Tom had never paid much attention. The papers were clear. His family did not just own the house and dock. They owned the lake itself. Every drop of water, every inch of the shoreline, legally belonged to them. Tom leaned back in his chair, holding the document. A small smile spread across his face. The Hoa thought they controlled the rules of the neighborhood, but they had overlooked something important. They did not own the lake, and they had no right to tell him what to do with his boat. The next morning, Tom walked down to the dock again. The sun reflected brightly on the water. He placed the papers back in their folder, tucked them under his arm, and looked across the calm surface. "Looks like it's time for the Hoa to learn a lesson," he said quietly to himself. The boat swayed gently as if agreeing. Tom was ready. The next few days passed quietly, but Tom knew the Hoa was waiting for his answer. He had no intention of moving the boat. Instead, he decided it was time to remind them who truly had rights over the water they used so freely. On the 5th day, another letter arrived. This one was firmer. Final warning, it said the fines would begin tomorrow if the boat was not moved. Tom folded the paper and placed it on the kitchen counter without worry. The old deed in his drawer gave him confidence. That evening, Tom invited Sam to his house. He showed him the folder filled with documents. Sam's eyes widened as he read. "You mean to say your family owns the whole lake? Every part of it?" Sam asked in disbelief. Tom nodded. "Yes. My father bought the land long before this neighborhood even existed. When the houses were built around the lake, they made their own rules, but the water has always belonged to us." Sam let out a low whistle. "No wonder you're so calm. They don't know what's coming." Tom smiled. "Exactly. But I don't want to fight. I just want them to understand. The lake is part of my family, and no one can tell me to move my boat from it." The next day was the weekend, and many residents were gathered near the community park by the lake. Children played on the swings, couples strolled by the water, and small groups chatted about neighborhood news. The Hoa board also stood nearby, checking that everything was in order. Tom walked over with the folder in his hand. His boat rested quietly at the dock, swaying with the ripples. Some people had already noticed it was still there, and whispers filled the air. Linda, the president, crossed her arms as Tom approached. "I see you ignored our notice," she said firmly. Tom stood tall. "I did not ignore it. I read it carefully, and now I've come to explain something important." The crowd turned curious. Sam joined Tom's side, while neighbors leaned closer to hear. Tom opened the folder and held up the deed. "This paper is more than 50 years old. It proves that my family owns the lake. Every inch of water you enjoy belongs to us. When you walk around it, when you fish in it, when you watch the sunset over it, you are standing by my family's property." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some gasped. Others exchanged doubtful looks. Linda frowned. "That is impossible. The lake is part of the community." Tom calmly handed her a copy of the deed. "Read it. The county office recognizes this ownership. I checked again this week. Your rules may cover lawns, fences, and mailboxes, but they do not cover the lake. You have no right to tell me to move my boat." Linda read the paper with tight lips. The other board members leaned over her shoulder. Their faces shifted from doubt to surprise. One man from the crowd spoke up. "So the Hoa has been making rules about something they don't even own." Another neighbor added, "If Tom owns the lake, then we've been using it because of his family's kindness. Not because of Hoa rules." The mood of the group changed quickly. People began to see the truth. Some who had once sided with Linda now looked at Tom with respect. Linda tried to recover. "Even if you own the lake, we still expect the neighborhood to look neat and orderly. A boat tied at the dock does not match the image we want." Tom shook his head. "Neat and orderly is one thing. Taking away rights is another. My boat will stay, and the lake will remain open to all. I have never stopped anyone from enjoying it, and I never will. But if you keep pushing, I may have to remind everyone that I have the power to set my own rules. Is that what you want?" The silence that followed was heavy. Neighbors looked at Linda, waiting for her response. She tightened her jaw but said nothing. Sam broke the silence. Tom has been generous all this time. He never asked for payment, never limited access, and never caused trouble. Maybe instead of arguing, we should be thankful. Several people nodded in agreement. A woman in the back spoke up. I bring my children to play by this water. I never knew Tom's family gave us that gift. Thank you, Tom. Tom gave a small nod. The lake is for everyone to enjoy. But I won't be bullied into giving up my rights. My boat stays. The crowd slowly began to disperse, leaving the board members together in a small group. Linda's face was pale, and the others whispered nervously. The strength of their authority had just been shaken in front of the entire community. Tom turned and walked back to his dock. The folder of papers was safe under his arm, but he no longer needed to hold it up. The people had seen enough. The truth was clear. As he reached the dock, Sam joined him. That was bold, Sam said with a grin. You just turned the whole neighborhood against the board. Tom looked out across the shining water. I didn't want to fight, Sam. I only wanted them to understand. The lake has always been mine to protect, not theirs to control. The boat rocked gently, as if agreeing with him once again. But Tom knew this was not the end. The HOA would not give up so easily. And when they tried again, he would be ready. For a few days after Tom showed the deed, the neighborhood grew quieter. The board members did not send more letters, and Linda did not come near his house. Tom spent his evenings fishing on the boat as he always had. Children still played by the water, and families continued to enjoy the lake without worry. But Tom knew the silence was not the end. The board was only planning their next move. On the seventh day, Tom received a thick envelope in the mail. Inside was a letter from the HOA's lawyer. The words were heavy with threats. The letter claimed that even if Tom's family owned the lake, the community had easement rights. It said the HOA could still enforce aesthetic rules because the boat was visible from public areas. The letter warned that if Tom did not move the boat, the HOA would take him to court. Tom read the letter carefully. He did not feel fear, only patience. He placed the paper on his desk, opened the old folder again, and checked the maps attached to the deed. The documents were clear. His father had purchased not only the lake but also the shoreline. There were no easement rights. The HOA had no ground to stand on. That evening, Tom called Sam over once more. He handed him the lawyer's letter. Sam shook his head. They won't stop, will they? They're trying to scare you. Tom replied calmly, fear only works if I allow it. They want me to bend. Instead, I'll show them that this lake is not just a piece of water. It is part of my family's history. The next day, Tom visited the county records office. He asked for certified copies of the documents that proved his ownership. The clerk was kind and helpful, pulling out thick ledgers and official seals. By the time Tom left, he had a neat folder of certified papers that could stand in any courtroom. Word of the HOA's new letter spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some people grew worried. A few came to Tom's door, asking if they would lose access to the lake because of the fight. Tom reassured them. The lake will always be open. I'm not here to take anything away. But I won't let the board take away my rights either. The weekend brought another community meeting. The hall was crowded this time. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Linda stood at the front, her face stern, holding the lawyer's letter. The HOA cannot allow exceptions, she declared. If Tom keeps his boat, others will demand the same. The lake will become messy, and our neighborhood will lose its beauty. We will take legal steps if we must. Whispers filled the room. Some nodded, but many frowned. Then Tom stood and walked to the front. He carried the certified folder in his hand. I have heard enough, Tom said firmly. He opened the folder and held up the stamped documents. These are certified copies from the county office. They prove beyond doubt that my family owns this lake and its shores. The HOA has no easement rights, no control, and no authority over it. The lawyer's letter is empty. Gasps rose from the crowd. Several people leaned forward to see the papers. Tom continued, I have allowed everyone to use this lake freely. I have never asked for payment, and I never will. But if the board continues to threaten me, I may have to limit access. I do not want that. I want peace. But I will not be bullied. The room buzzed with voices. Some residents spoke up loudly now. He's right, one man said. The lake is his. We've all enjoyed it because of him. A woman added, Linda, you're going too far. We should be thanking Tom, not fighting him. The board members looked uneasy. Linda's face turned red. She tried to argue, but the voices of the neighbors drowned her out. For the first time, the board seemed to lose control. Finally, Tom raised his hand, and the room grew quieter. I will make this simple. My boat stays. The lake stays open. But if one more false letter comes to my house, I will take the matter to the county myself. And then this board will face the law, not me. The weight of his words settled over the room. Many nodded in agreement. Even those who had once sided with the board now seemed unsure. The meeting ended without a decision. Neighbors left in small groups, whispering about what they had learned. The board members gathered together, their faces tense. It was clear they would not give up, but they were running out of support. Later that night, Tom sat on his dock once more. The moonlight shone across the water, and his boat rocked gently. Sam sat beside him, smiling. You handled that well, Sam said. Tom nodded. The board may try again, but truth is on my side. This lake is part of who I am. They can't take that away. The sound of frogs croaking and water lapping against the dock filled the night air. Tom felt calm, but he also knew the board would not back down easily. Their pride was hurt, and they would find another way to fight. Tom looked at the moon's reflection on the lake. He whispered to himself, let them try. This water has belonged to my family for generations. It will not be taken by rules written on paper. The boat swayed gently, waiting for the next chapter of the battle that was sure to come. The following week, Tom noticed something unusual. Signs had been placed near the walking path by the lake. They read, no private boats allowed, HOA rule. Tom stood on the path, staring at the new signs. The board had not given up. Instead of coming to him directly, they were now trying to turn the whole neighborhood against him. Sam arrived soon after, shaking his head. They're playing dirty now. Anyone who sees these signs will think you're breaking rules again. Tom sighed. It doesn't matter what they post. The truth is clear. But I can't let lies spread. If they want a fight, I'll answer it with facts. That evening, Tom typed up a letter of his own. He made copies for every neighbor in the community. In the letter, he explained the history of the lake, his father's purchase, and his legal ownership. He included copies of the certified deed so everyone could see for themselves. The next morning, Tom walked door to door, slipping the letters into mailboxes. Some neighbors came out to speak with him. Many thanked him for being open and honest. A few even admitted they had doubted him before but now understood the truth. By the afternoon, the entire neighborhood was buzzing with conversation. The signs put up by the HOA no longer carried weight. People knew they were false. But Linda and the board were not done. At the next meeting, she arrived with new energy. Her voice was sharp as she addressed the crowd. Neighbors, she began, this community must remain orderly. If one man can ignore the rules, what will stop others? Soon we'll have jet skis, speedboats, and noise disturbing our peace. We must act now before it gets out of control. A few people nodded, but many shook their heads. One man stood and said, "Linda, we all got Tom's letter. He owns the lake. Your rules don't apply to it." Another woman added, "He has been generous. He never stopped us from walking around or fishing. You're making trouble where there is none." Linda's face tightened. She tried to argue, but the voices grew louder. The board was losing its hold on the community, and Tom knew it. After the meeting ended, Linda walked up to Tom in private. Her eyes were narrow. "You may think you've won, but this isn't over. The board will not be made to look weak." Tom replied calmly, "It's not about winning. It's about truth. Stop trying to control what you don't own, and there will be peace." Linda turned and left without another word. The days that followed were tense. The board stopped sending letters, but they began new tricks. One morning, Tom found trash scattered near his dock. Another time, he noticed someone had untied the rope that held his boat, letting it drift slightly before Sam helped him pull it back. These acts were quiet, but Tom understood the message. Someone was trying to intimidate him. Instead of fear, Tom felt stronger. He called the county sheriff's office and explained the situation. The officer visited his property, looked over the documents, and promised to keep watch. "Your ownership is clear," the officer said. "If anyone tampers with your property again, call us immediately." Tom thanked him. Knowing the law was on his side gave him even more confidence. One evening, Tom decided to hold a small gathering at his dock. He invited neighbors, offering simple snacks and drinks. Families came with children, who ran laughing along the shore. People sat on chairs and talked, watching the sunset over the water. Sam raised a cup and said loudly, "Here's to Tom, for keeping this lake open and safe for all of us." Cheers followed, and Tom felt warmth in his heart. He realized that while the board tried to turn people against him, the truth was doing the opposite. The community was beginning to see him not as a problem, but as a protector of the lake. Yet Tom knew Linda would not stop. Her pride had been wounded, and the more support Tom gained, the more determined she would become. As night fell and the neighbors left, Tom sat on his dock, staring at the rippling water. The boat rocked gently, tied securely once more. Sam sat beside him, quiet for a while before speaking. "They'll come back with something bigger," Sam said softly. Tom nodded. "Yes. And when they do, I'll be ready. The truth doesn't change, no matter how hard they fight it." The stars reflected on the surface of the lake, steady and calm. Tom felt at peace for now, but he knew the board's next move was coming soon. And this time, it might not be just signs or letters. The next week began quietly, but Tom knew the silence would not last. He was right. On Tuesday morning, a man in a suit arrived at his door. He introduced himself as Mr. Clark, an attorney hired by the HOA. "I am here to deliver official notice," the lawyer said as he handed Tom a thick envelope. "The HOA intends to file a case against you for failing to follow community rules. They claim your boat lowers property values and disturbs the neighborhood's appearance." Tom accepted the envelope without a word. After the lawyer left, he opened it and read through the pages. The HOA was serious. They wanted a judge to decide the matter. Sam visited later that day. Tom handed him the papers, and Sam whistled low. "They're really pushing it. Do they think a judge will side with them?" Tom shook his head. "They're hoping I'll get scared and give up. But the law is clear. My father's deed is stronger than any rule they write." Still, Tom knew he could not fight this alone. He contacted his own lawyer, a calm and steady man named Mr. Hill. They met at Tom's dining table, where the old folder lay open with all the documents inside. Mr. Hill studied them carefully. "This is solid. The deed is valid, recorded, and recognized. The HOA does not own the lake or its shores. They have no legal ground. If they want a fight, we will give them one. And we will win. Tom felt reassured. I don't want to shut the lake to the people. I only want peace. Mr. Hill nodded. And that will be our case. You are not harming anyone. You are protecting your rights. Word of the lawsuit spread fast. Some neighbors worried about what it meant. Would the lake be closed during the fight? Would lawyers take away the simple joy of walking by the water? Tom assured them that nothing would change. This lake has always been open. That will not stop because of a courtroom. The tension grew heavier. At the next HOA meeting, Linda stood proudly, announcing, "We have taken the matter to court. Soon, a judge will confirm that the rules apply to everyone, no exceptions." But instead of cheers, the room filled with groans. One man stood and asked, "Why are we spending community money on this? Isn't this just about one boat?" Another added, "Tom has shown us the deed. He owns the lake. Why are you dragging us into a lawsuit we can't win?" Linda tried to defend her actions. "If we let this go, our community will fall into disorder." But the crowd was not convinced. Many were tired of the fight. Tom spoke calmly from the back of the room. "I have no wish to harm this community. I will never block access to the lake. But I will not allow lies to take away my rights. If the board insists on this fight, I will defend myself, and the truth will be clear." Some neighbors clapped softly. Others nodded in agreement. The board members looked uneasy. Even those who had once stood by Linda now seemed unsure about her leadership. As weeks passed, the case moved forward. Tom's lawyer gathered documents, photographs, and testimony from neighbors who supported him. Sam agreed to speak in court, saying, "Tom has never stopped anyone from enjoying the lake. He takes care of it more than anyone else." Meanwhile, the HOA continued to spread fear. They mailed letters claiming that if Tom won, he might close the lake or charge fees. People began coming to Tom's door, worried. Each time, Tom reassured them. "I will never close the lake. That is not who I am." One evening, Tom hosted another gathering at his dock. This time, even more neighbors came. They sat together, listening as Tom explained what was happening. He showed them the certified documents again, proving ownership. He answered their questions patiently. By the end, many left with trust in him, not the board. Sam smiled as the last group walked away. "You've already won their hearts, Tom. Even if the board keeps pushing, the people know the truth." Tom nodded. "But pride is a powerful thing. Linda will not stop until a judge tells her she's wrong. Only then will this end." As the sun set behind the trees, the lake glowed golden. Tom looked out at the water. The fight had become larger than a boat. It was about truth, fairness, and the right to stand firm. He whispered to himself, "My father gave me this lake. I will not let anyone take it away." The boat rocked gently, ready for whatever battle came next. The morning of the court hearing arrived with clear skies. Tom dressed neatly, carrying the folder of documents that had once belonged to his father. Sam drove him to the courthouse, offering quiet encouragement along the way. "You've got the truth," Sam said. "That's stronger than any argument they can make." Tom nodded but remained calm. He knew the HOA would come with their lawyer and try to make the case sound bigger than it really was. Inside the courthouse, the small courtroom filled quickly. On one side sat Linda and the board members, their lawyer Mr. Clark speaking quietly with them. On the other side sat Tom with his lawyer, Mr. Hill. Several neighbors had come as well, sitting in the back rows to watch. Some wanted to support Tom, others were simply curious to see the result. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Mr. Clark stood first. He spoke confidently, his voice steady. "Your Honor, this case is simple. The community has rules to protect its beauty and value. If one man ignores these rules, others will follow. Soon, the lake will be filled with boats, noise, and disorder. We are not against Mr. Tom personally, but rules must apply to all. Some board members nodded firmly as he spoke. Linda's eyes shone with determination. Then it was Mr. Hill's turn. He stood calmly, holding the certified documents in his hand. Your Honor, this case is not about rules. It is about rights. My client is the legal owner of the lake. This is not opinion, it is fact, supported by certified records from the county. The HOA does not own the water, the dock, or the shoreline. Their rules may cover houses and lawns, but they do not extend to property they do not own. The attempt to control my client's boat is an overreach. He handed the documents to the judge. The judge studied them carefully, his face serious. Next came witnesses. Sam was called first. He stepped up, speaking with honesty. Tom has never stopped anyone from using the lake. I've fished with him for years. He keeps his boat neat and safe. He does not disturb anyone. In fact, he takes better care of the lake than anyone I know. The HOA lawyer tried to press him. But what if others followed his example? What if 20 boats filled the water? Sam shrugged. That's not what's happening. We're talking about one boat, tied at one dock. That's all. A few neighbors also spoke. One mother said, "My children play near the lake almost every day. Tom has always been kind and welcoming. I had no idea his family owned the lake until recently, but I believe him. He has never acted selfish." Each voice added to Tom's strength. The judge listened quietly, taking notes. Finally, it was Tom's turn to speak. He rose slowly and looked at the judge. His voice was steady and respectful. Your Honor, my father bought this lake many years ago. It has been part of my family ever since. I never stopped anyone from walking here or enjoying the water. I never charged a fee. All I ask is the right to keep my boat at my dock, the same boat that has been there for years. The HOA's rules do not cover this lake, because it is mine to protect. I have no wish to close it, but I will not be bullied into giving up what my father left me. The courtroom grew quiet after his words. Even some board members looked down at their papers, unsure. The judge finally leaned forward. His voice carried through the room. I have reviewed the deed and the records. There is no question. The lake belongs to Mr. Tom. The HOA has no authority over it. The notices and threats against him are invalid. This case is dismissed. Gasps filled the room. Some neighbors clapped softly before the bailiff called for silence. Linda's face turned pale. She tried to protest, but the judge raised his hand. The matter is settled. The HOA will not harass Mr. Tom further. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck, and the hearing was over. As people filed out, many came to shake Tom's hand. Some thanked him for standing firm. Others smiled with relief that the fight was over. Sam clapped him on the back, beaming. You did it, Tom. You showed them the truth. Tom smiled calmly. It wasn't about winning. It was about protecting what's right. The lake will stay open for all, but no one will ever tell me to move my boat again. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone brightly. Tom felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had lifted. The lake waited for him back home, calm and steady as always. But as he looked toward the horizon, Tom knew this victory meant more than just keeping a boat. It meant keeping a promise to his father and to himself. The lake would remain free, safe, and honest, just as it had always been. And now, the whole community knew it. News of the court ruling spread quickly through the neighborhood. By evening, everyone knew that Tom had won the case. Some neighbors came by his house to congratulate him. Others sent notes, thanking him for keeping the lake free from the strict rules of the HOA. Tom accepted their kind words with calm humility. He never wanted to be seen as a hero. He only wanted to protect what belonged to his family and ensure the lake stayed open for all. The next morning, he walked down to the water's edge. The sun glowed softly across the rippling waves. Birds flew low, skimming the surface. The dock stood strong, and his boat swayed gently, tied to the post. It was a quiet, peaceful sight. Sam joined him not long after. "Feels different today, doesn't it?" Sam asked. Tom nodded. "It does. The fight is over, but I think this is also the beginning of something new." Sam smiled. "The neighbors see you differently now. Not just as a man with a boat, but as someone who stood up for everyone's right to enjoy this place." As the days passed, people began to treat Tom with greater respect. Families who once worried about the HOA's strictness now relaxed. Children played more freely near the water. Fishermen cast their lines without fear of being told off. Some neighbors even helped Tom clean the edges of the lake, picking up litter and trimming weeds. The HOA board, however, faced growing unrest. Many residents questioned Linda's leadership. Some asked why she had wasted so much time and money fighting Tom when the lake was never theirs to control. Board meetings grew tense. Arguments broke out, and several members quietly resigned. Linda herself became less visible. She no longer walked around the neighborhood with her clipboard. Her sharp voice was not heard in the streets as often. Without the weight of her authority, the neighborhood began to breathe easier. Tom did not take joy in her downfall. He simply carried on as before. He kept the boat tied at the dock, used it for fishing on calm mornings, and sometimes rowed across the lake to enjoy the stillness. He never closed the lake to anyone. If children wanted to swim, he welcomed them. If neighbors wanted to gather by the water, he encouraged them. His father had always believed the lake should bring people together, not divide them, and Tom kept that belief alive. One weekend, a small gathering took place by the lake. Families brought food and blankets. Children played in the grass, laughing and running. Sam grilled fish he and Tom had caught earlier. Music played softly from a radio. It felt like a celebration, not just of the lake, but of freedom from needless control. During the gathering, a neighbor stood and raised his glass. "To Tom," he said, smiling. "For protecting not only his father's gift, but also the joy of this whole community." Others joined in, lifting their cups with cheers. Tom felt a warmth in his chest. He had not asked for praise, but it was good to see everyone happy and united. That night, when the gathering ended and the lake grew still again, Tom sat alone on the dock. The stars reflected on the water like tiny lanterns. He thought about his father and the promise he had kept. "You'd be proud," he whispered softly, as if his father could hear. In the weeks that followed, life returned to a steady rhythm. The HOA still managed lawns, fences, and small neighborhood matters, but they no longer bothered Tom about the lake. In fact, they no longer dared to. The deed and the ruling had made everything clear. Over time, Tom noticed something else. The neighborhood, once tense and divided, had grown closer. Without constant threats and warnings, people began to trust each other more. They worked together to keep the area beautiful. They shared food, stories, and laughter. The lake became the heart of the community. It was where families gathered on weekends, where children learned to fish, where neighbors sat in the evenings to watch the sunset. The boat that once caused so much conflict now symbolized peace and belonging. Tom often sat back and watched it all. He felt no anger toward those who had tried to control him. Instead, he felt gratitude. The struggle had been hard, but it had revealed the strength of truth and the value of standing firm. One afternoon, Sam asked him, "So, what now, Tom? What will you do with this victory?" Tom smiled. "Nothing special. I'll keep living as I always have." But I'll also remind everyone that this lake is not just mine. It belongs in spirit to all who respect it. That's how it will stay." Sam nodded, satisfied. "That's why it worked. Because you never thought only of yourself." Seasons passed, but the memory of the court fight remained. Neighbors sometimes told the story to new families who moved in. They explained how one man's quiet strength had protected the lake for everyone. And every time they told it, they ended with the same words. "He owns the lake, but he shares it with us all." For Tom, that was enough. He had honored his father's legacy, protected his rights, and brought his community closer together. The lake, once a point of conflict, had become a symbol of unity. And whenever the boat rocked gently at its dock, it reminded everyone of the day one man stood firm and changed everything.